let's get this over with. First and foremost, I want to start by asking everybody who's listening to try your utmost to empty yourself of all emotions before listening to this video. If you can, remove all cultural bias, remove any on-group preference, and if you're in the red pill rage, try for the sake of argument to temporarily quell that just for the duration of this video. If you're a religious person or an atheist, disregard your feelings and emotional attachments before we proceed, and just keep an open mind, but obviously keep your beliefs intact. I'm not asking you to give up that. In this video, I would like to just give my 2 cents on the whole women go after bad boys topic. Not from a beta or blue pill perspective, but from a quote unquote bad boys perspective. Oh man. I was hesitant to do this because although I don't view myself as a bad boy, I've been called that pretty much my whole life. And that same line of thought, I don't think any bad boy really views himself as a bad boy unless you're like, a serial killer or, anyways, let's just get this over with, man. Alright, so I've been labeled as a bad boy. However, the grass is not always green as you may think. You see, women are never satisfied. You can't win no matter what archetype you fit into. I'm here to tell you firsthand that as somebody demonized as a bad boy, women don't want us as permanent long-time mates. To give you an illustration of my point, watch the following clip.
I love him.
Do you?
Girls flirt with a dangerous guy, Logan. You don't take him home. You married a good guy.
I could be the good guy.
Logan, the good guy sticks around.
Jean, please.
Please, don't make me do this.
Do what?
This.
When I saw that part of the movie initially, when I was in the theater, I was currently dating a girl. And I think I may have been the only guy whose eyes were like tearing up and watering. And it wasn't because it was a sad or romantic moment. It's because that resonated with my heartstrings. It hit me right in the chest because I felt like this fictional character, Wolverine, Logan, understood me. Like, I resonated with him. I understood what he was going through because my entire life, that's what I was told. They always wanted to find somebody who quote unquote treated them better, aka bent over backwards for them. A mangina who would give them everything they wanted, a yes man, and that was not me. So because I had a spine and I wasn't a jellyfish, I was told, I'm gonna go for the other guy, the nice guy. But you find out that that's not even permanent. The truth is, they want to pump and dump us in the long run. The only difference is they convolute the truth of their intentions and string us along until they find what you guys call a beta male simp to take care of their other needs that we cannot, will not, and are unable to fulfill, such as giving into their tests. You see, there's a constant war waging inside of women. On one hand, they crave to be led, dominated, and told what to do. They like being submissive. On the other hand, there's an innate desire inside of them to constantly test the person who dominates them. Now, from an evolutionary standpoint, this is due to finding the best mate who is quote unquote man enough to reproduce with. From a biblical standpoint, this is due to the scripture we find in Genesis 3:16. In the second part of that verse, you'll come across, which is really interesting, God cursed women. Now, whether you believe the Bible to be true, false, fairy tale, fiction, fact, reality, I'm going to cover that in a different video. But at the end of the day, evolution and religion come to the same point. They come to the same result. Now, it says in the latter part of verse 16 of chapter 3, it says, your longing will be for your husband, and he will dominate you. In some translation, it says your craving will be for your husband. When it comes to women, the finale is the same. Regardless of what angle you come at female nature from, you will always get the same result. 2 plus 2 is 4, but so is 3 plus 1. Now, with the aforementioned text in mind, according to the scriptures, Adam and Eve were the first humans. They were the only two on the planet at that time. So the word husband could easily be interchanged with the word man. Actually, in some translations, it does say that your craving will be for a man and he will dominate you. Now, I just want to share with the MGTOW community my experiences as a man who was classified as a bad boy his entire life. Personally, I've never viewed myself as such. I simply never allowed women to manipulate me or wield power over me. And I was able to see through female nature at a young age thanks to my father, my mother, my brother, and my uncles. Now, don't get it twisted. All men want the same thing. We all want the same thing because it's in our biology, it's in our nature. As a recurring topic throughout the manosphere, we try to reiterate that men do want companionship. We do want long-term relationships. We do want to build a family with a suitable female. Note that key word, suitable female. Now, we know there's no such thing as in the wall. Taking that into consideration, as a guy who has been labeled a bad boy or a player, it was easy for me to attract women. And it was easy for me to attract the nicest and sweetest women as well. Or so I thought. But you see, these women didn't want me for the long term. They don't want any of us for the long term. Hence the cock carousel. I'll get into that later on in the video. See, you gotta understand that as a guy who from a young age, as a man who from a young age never allowed himself to be manipulated by women or females or girls, who never gave in to the test, I was labeled a bad boy. And there's different degrees of bad boys. But, you know, someone who simply doesn't let a woman walk all over him and stands up for herself and doesn't play games could be labeled a bad boy. But then there's always somebody worse. There's always, and I'm not trying to play the victim card here or say, you know, I'm not bad as those guys, because I'm not a bad guy. But, you know, the term bad boy is tossed around loosely. Someone who's a renegade who doesn't conform. I mean, it's simple as that. Now, there's extremes in all ends of the spectrum. Like, in a domination aspect, like Barbarossa made in a video about hybristophilia. He speaks on it. And it's a broad spectrum. You know, a guy who enjoys to choke and slap a female during intimate situations to give her pleasure may be considered a bad boy or have bad boy tendencies. That's different than a guy who actually chokes and slaps women and beats them. He's a bad boy, but an entirely different guy. And then there's guys who actually murder women. But as Barbarossa brought out, there are women who are attracted to all types of bad boys. The extreme ones, the guys who just have bad boy streaks. It's a broad spectrum, and there's a broad spectrum of women who are attracted to it. Now, getting back on topic of what I was saying, yeah, I had easy access to women. And initially, as a young man, every man wants that. Every boy wants that. Now, when I came into puberty and I started to become attractive to girls, every guy goes through this stage because I talk to other guys and other teens my age. And when I remember as a teenager, my friends would always ask me, man, you always get the girls. You got all the hoes. That's what they would say. Man, you always got the hoes. You know what I'm saying? Now, I've had girls call me a pretty boy before. If that, just to give you an idea of how women viewed me. I never viewed myself as that. So anyways, my friends would always ask me, man, like, oh, you know, how do you make it look so easy? And I didn't know. I didn't know what it was about me. You know, that was how I was raised by my mother and my brother and my dad, to never put women on a pedestal. And from a young age, what that does is create chemistry. But I didn't know any of this. See, this was taught to me at a young age. It's taught to me naturally. So that is why the pickup artist, the PUA community, called me a natural, or whatever you want to call it. But getting back to my point, you have to understand that even as a quote-unquote bad boy, or a womanizer, whatever you want to call it, we're still just one more ride, one more mount in that cock carousel. You see, it's not, the cock carousel that women ride isn't just filled with bad boy mounts. You gotta realize that if you were a beta male or blue pill or whatever you want to call yourself, who is screwed over by a chick who chased after the bad boy, that you were just one of many cocks on that carousel that she wanted to ride, which means you were included in that cock carousel. Now, yes, despite popular belief, nice guys don't always finish last. Sometimes they finish third, fourth, or fifth. You get what I'm saying? The whole point of this video is just to make a declaration, man. Don't demonize bad boys for who they are. We're also victims of gynocentrism and the matriarchy. But I'm not here to claim to be a victim. I'm not here for that. And I'm not going to go over the topic of how bad boys are created, because that's been covered before. I'm not going to get into any of that. I'm going to save that for another video. I wanted to share an experience of one of the defining moments in my life that made me who I am today. As a little boy, my parents were already divorced by the time I was born. They were divorced and separated, but my dad lived a few blocks away. I remember he came and picked me up one time, and he took me on his shoulders all the way back to his house. It was about a mile. I get to his house. We walk up the stairs, go into the living room. And I'm trying to remember this as vividly as possible. I remember the smells. Smell like cigarette smoke and perfume. Now, visually remembering seeing, there were 4 women. There were 2 sitting on the couch and 2 sitting at the dining room table. 2 black ones, a Hispanic and a white one. The Hispanic lady and the white lady were sitting on the couch. Now, instantly, I had all eyes on me as a little boy. My dad introduces me to them, and they all say how cute I am and how I look like my dad, blah, 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 blah. Now, here's what was interesting to me. These women were very scantily clad, and the Hispanic woman had some. Whew, her titties were huge. And I mean, as a 5 or 6 year old boy, you're gonna stare. Like, as a grown man, you're gonna stare. But she has some big titties, man. Anyways, you see how you get distracted. Oh man. So anyways, so it's about time for my mom to come pick me up. You know, I ate dinner with my dad, and all right, get your stuff ready, get your shoes ready, and you have to go outside as soon as she pulls up, because I'm not trying to hear her mouth. I didn't know what that meant. I just laughed like, oh, okay, daddy, you know. And as I'm leaving, being the tactless little kid that I am, I asked him, I said, hey, daddy, can I have some money? And he's like, yeah, for sure, son. I'm surprised it took you this long to ask. Now, it's funny because he didn't give me any money. He walked into the kitchen and he started making me a plate. And he says to the women that were there, hey, you ladies give my son some cash. Give him any change that you have. Now these women all went into their purses. The big titty one went into her bra. Gave me a bunch of 5s and singles. The white lady says, hey, is it okay if I give him a 20? And my dad's like, yeah, that's fine. Just don't lose it. And he said that looking at me, and he pointed to me, just don't lose it. I'm like, okay, I won't. I was happy as heck. That was the first time I'd gotten a $20 bill of my own. My mom pulls up outside, honks the horn. I hug and kiss my dad goodbye, and I remember his scruffy beard scratching my face. The ladies gave me hugs, and Big Titty one gave me a hug. And she smelled so good. I get in the car with my mom, and she's like, "You have fun with your dad, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, you know. And you know what you do? You smell like perfume." And I'm like, "Yeah, Daddy had his girlfriends over. He got a bunch of them." And she laughed, you know, and like, "Yeah, were they nice to my baby boy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they gave me money, Mom." And she's like, "They gave you money? How much?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So we get home and we counted. It was about $75. As a 5-year-old kid, I thought I was rich. Especially a kid who lived in the inner city, grew up in the inner city. So my mom made me put it in my piggy bank, and she did all the money I got. Fast forward to a few years ago. I'm talking to my dad, and I'm going to bring this home. I'm going to bring this all in, guys, just so you can get a perspective. Now, this isn't a universal forging of a bad boy, quote unquote, but this is just my story of how I became a bad boy, or labeled as such, in a MGTOW. Fast forward to a few years ago. I'm talking to my dad as a grown man about these events, and I like tell him, I'm like, "You don't remember that?" And he's like, "I vaguely remember that, son, but I was high." He was like, "I barely remember that," but he was like, "I do remember that incident. You know, I don't remember all the details." But he told me, he said, "Son, those weren't my girlfriends. Those were my hoes." That blew my mind. Eyes wide, blew my mind, man. I'm just like, what? So, how does this excerpt of my life tie into MGTOW? Well, it didn't surprise me that they were hoes and that my dad was a pimp. I mean, at this point in my life, as a grown man, I knew that. What surprised me is that I actually got to witness this firsthand. The pimping, not obviously the pimping part, but that right there planted the seed in my mind at a young age. The difference between a pimp's mentality, which is a pimp is a type of a bad boy. There's many types, but I'm gonna get into that in another video. A pimp's mentality and a simp's mentality juxtaposed against each other. Nonetheless, I had always heard tales and stories of my dad, brother, and uncles being womanizers from my friends and family, and I vowed to myself not to be that way. But at the same time, I had red pill knowledge from that young age. I thought it was normal to get money from women. I thought that was just how it's supposed to be. You go to women, you get money from them. And they're supposed to help you and give you what you want because you're the prize. You see, my brother and my uncles and even my mother always drilled into me not to trust women and not to trust my heart. To always question a woman's intentions and to question attractive women's intentions even more. Because attractive women live in a different reality than the average woman. Mental note to myself, another video. My mother used to say, and I quote, "Be careful out there. Remember who you are and watch out for them piss-tail girls." And I'm like, what? I don't know to this day what a piss-tail girl was. But when she said, "Remember who I am," she meant like, you know, you're your father's son. And to this day, I still don't know what a piss-tail girl is. I asked her recently, and she didn't have an explanation for me, other than saying it meant watch out for women in general. I guess, and especially women who smell like piss. But anyways, I remember whenever I became particularly fond of any female, my brother would always say to me, "Little bro, you have to ask her straight up, what can you give me that you've never given to anyone else, to any other man? Tell me what you can offer me that is special to me, that would make me feel more special and proud to say that you're my girlfriend. And I went through my whole life with that philosophy and that mentality, as opposed to the average blue pill man. His friends and family and relatives and his parents telling him, oh, you have to offer something to women. You have to give something to a woman because she's the catch. What can you offer? You need to do this, you need to do that, so that you can be good enough and be able to provide and give something to a woman to make her feel special. You got to make her feel special. That's the difference. Little did I know that would make me a bad boy or renegade or a rebel, whatever they wanted to call me. Now we come full circle back to how I was classified as a bad boy my whole life. Even when I didn't feel I was. I thought I was being fair. I thought I was being just. I thought I was being equal, as they like to say. But when you combine the desire to treat women fairly with red pill knowledge and a young teen's hormonal disposition, you have a very dangerous combination. Due to the reputation of my brother, my uncles, my dad, everyone assumed I was going to follow in their footsteps and be a womanizer as well. They forgot one key variable that was forged into me: to question everything. So I posed a question to myself at a young age. I was about 17, 18 years old. What if I could find a healthy median between being a womanizer and a romanticist? Sounds crazy, huh? I'll save you the trouble and tell you right now, there is no median in this current society that you can win at. There is none. I spent over 10 years of dating, courting, and interacting with countless women of various ages and ethnicities. I've dated ridiculously beautiful girls. I dated some mediocre girls because I thought maybe, okay, she's not as attractive, so she'll appreciate me more. And there's many types of bad boys. As you know, Sandman stated in one of his videos how the definition of a bad boy is constantly changing. It's fluid. Over the years it changes. And I agree. You see, I was never a womanizer. I never used quote unquote game, simply because I believe that a heart isn't a toy. You don't play with people's hearts. You don't play with people's emotions. And the person who taught me that was my brother. Yes, the same man who was categorized and just lumped together as a womanizer, demonized as a womanizer by so many people. He gave me that nugget of knowledge. Never use game, because a heart isn't a toy. Only deal with reality. You offer them reality. They can either accept it or reject it. You see, but how could this be? How could a man who was portrayed as a villain speak something that directly conflicts in contrast with the notion of being a womanizer? Then it hit me. I realized that despite being called a womanizer, he always had women at his beckoning call. Or as we like to say, hoes on deck. If he was known for being a womanizer and emotionally abusing and mistreating women, then why didn't that reputation impact his success and access to endless vagina? It baffled me for a long time. I remember he had a notebook full of phone numbers. And no, this wasn't just a little black book. This was a full-size, 120-sheet, college-ruled notebook. Me and my best friend would prank call these women late at night. And I could do a very good vocal impression of my brother. I recall saying all types of insane things to these women, and they just be eating it up. I would tell them I was going to come over in the middle of the night, do all type of nasty things to them. Some of them even had husbands and boyfriends. I remember cracking up because I'd hear him on the phone the next day like, I never told you I was coming over. I didn't even talk to you last night. You crazy. You tripping, woman. Good times. But I'm getting sidetracked. Sorry about that. Even though my brother had a notebook full of booty calls, they weren't all meant to be booty calls. He still wasn't a womanizer in my eyes. And I'll explain how. It's like trying to find anything precious. You gotta sift. And just like from another standpoint, men in general are looking for that girl who's not like the rest, who's not a hoe, who hasn't slept around with a bunch of men, who hasn't ridden the cock carousel. That's the same plight as the bad boy. And I can't speak for all. I can only speak for myself. You see, the difference between the average male and the guy with red pill knowledge is that we're both looking for the same type of woman, just going about it in different ways. You see, being a man who was told that he was the prize, that he was the catch, that he had the family jewels, and I believe they're called that for a reason. You don't hear anyone saying that about ovaries or about women. As a man, you have the family jewels, which means you're precious. You are the catch. Keep that in mind. So anyways, with that in mind, being that guy and exuding that persona and exuding that level of confidence, it was hard for me to find a woman who didn't give in to my expectations so easily, who didn't give in to what I'd say I wanted in my demands so easily. So it was the same plight, just from a different aspect and a different viewpoint. And they did so initially, but ultimately I was never good enough. I wasn't long-term material. I was a bad boy. According to them, their parents, their friends, I was a bad boy and I was not good enough. AKA, I wasn't able to be manipulated and I wasn't easily swayed and I couldn't be controlled by my penis. So when you don't do that, you're a bad boy. It's crazy. So I'm just going to leave you guys with that. I'm going to end this first video with that. There will be a part 2. I just didn't want to make it too long and too drawn out for the first video. And I will be uploading part 2 of the Untold Chronicles of a Bad Boy in a few days, maybe a week. But yeah, so far, this is what I got. So if you like this video, hit the thumbs up, share it, subscribe, and keep your ears open for part 2, which will be coming soon, within the week if I can. That's all I really gotta say for now. So with that in mind, I'm out of here. Stay awake, stand firm, and grow mighty, and as always, stay focused.
Say something. Know that there's two sides to every story. Trying to call the shots, but you ain't even got the